Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanic. And if you enjoy this fanic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanic like this. And now let's start the fanic.
Mission Central. I believe my team is finally ready for AC rank mission Lord Hokage. Kakashi said calmly as he and his team sat with the third Hokage and Iruka as they prepared to get their newest mission. There's no way that they're ready. They've only been genin for a little while. Iruka yelled out as he slammed his hands against the desk he was sitting on. Oh, relax, Iruka-sensei. It's not like the D ranks are doing us any good. They're boring and most of the time we finish them quickly. What's the big deal with 1C rank? If it's too much, Kakashi-sensei will be strong enough to help us. Naruto said with a smug expression on his face. What went unsaid was that he was fairly strong himself and that he could fight off some small-time foes. Alright. If you think that you're ready, go ahead and take the mission I've prepared, the third insisted. Naruto's explanation was incredibly logical and most C ranks weren't too dangerous. Lord Hokage, are you sure? Iruka said nervously. Yes, I am. Please bring in Tazuna, the third said calmly. Iruka nodded his approval and left. A few minutes later, Iruka returned with an old man who looked like he spent too much time at the bar. Between his clearly unshaven beard and the bottle of booze in his hand, he wasn't too impressive. So these are the brats guarding me. Yeah, I'm not impressed, the man scoffed. So this is our client. Yeah, I'm not impressed, Naruto replied. The old man stunk of booze and he struck Naruto as the type who couldn't do anything right. The third frowned slightly but figured that both parties would react this way. This is Tazuna. He's a bridge builder in the Land of Waves. All you need to do is return him safely to the Land of Waves and that's it. It's a standard protection detail, the third said calmly. It was as basic AC rank as existed for the kids. Naruto frowned since something was clearly off. Alrighty then, Naruto said calmly. Everyone, let's meet up in an hour or so. Make sure that you have everything packed for at least a week-long mission. Kakashi instructed. As the group nodded their approval, Kakashi frowned since something was bothering him. Hopefully it was nothing and the mission would be peaceful. Memorial Stone. As Kakashi looked at the memorial stone, he was still bothered by the mission that the group was going on. That feeling was amplified when his secret student arrived. So you're appearing as yourself this time. Kakashi smirked as Naruto appeared next to him, all ready to go. Yes, because we need to discuss something important, Naruto said sternly. He couldn't shake this bad feeling that he had about the upcoming missions. So it's bothering you also? Kakashi said knowingly. The old man acknowledges he needs help, but he scoffed when he realized we were kids. Naruto acknowledged. In other words, Kakashi said calmly, knowing what his student was suggesting. This mission might be a little bit more annoying than we originally expected. Naruto smirked. Have you told the others about your thoughts on the matter? Kakashi wondered. No, but I have a feeling that Sasuke will be on his guard. If I could tell something was off, then there's no way he couldn't, Naruto admitted. As advanced as he was, Naruto was aware that Sasuke was still very talented and once his Sharingan awoke he could easily catch up to him. Who knows, maybe we're just overthinking things, Kakashi said offhandedly. If only one of us had that feeling, that would be one thing, but both of us did, so I'm a bit more concerned. Naruto groaned. Oh well. This might be a blessing in disguise. You haven't been able to test out your tricks on enemy Kunoichi and you could get a chance on this mission, Kakashi teased. Ever since he mastered the techniques, he hadn't had any real practice with them. Naruto's sweat dropped since he hadn't used the techniques in a while. Let's hope not, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto replied, knowing that if he actually had to use the techniques, it meant that the mission went wrong. Scene skip. Everyone was now together heading towards the Land of Waves. Sakura was in front with the client with Kakashi while Naruto and Sasuke were a few feet behind. Kakashi and Naruto were aware that their client was hiding something. The question was, how bad was the secret? Amusingly enough for Naruto, it appeared as though Sasuke was aware of it as well. Hey Naruto, this guy is hiding something, isn't he? Sasuke whispered nervously. Oh yeah, if he was worried about simply bandits he wouldn't have scoffed at us. Naruto replied. Well, let's hope that it's simple bandits because otherwise we might be in trouble. I don't know about you, but Sakura and I definitely aren't ready for real danger, Sasuke said nervously. Sasuke knew he was strong, but he was also aware that real ninja were a different problem entirely. Maybe, maybe not. It depends on how dangerous we're talking, Naruto smirked. The group walked a fair bit before something odd finally struck the group. It was a simple puddle in the middle of the road. Shit, this is bad, Naruto thought to himself. That puddle was a classic sign of an ambush. Sure, it was amateurish at best, but that meant that the group after Tazuna were ninja and that they didn't expect he would hire help. This should be interesting, Kakashi thought to himself as he prepared to fight off his newest opponents. The wait didn't last long and a pair of ninja came out of nowhere and cut Kakashi in half. Kakashi-sensei! Sakura screamed out. Unlike the others, Sakura was completely caught off guard, and with their teacher gone she was nervous. Don't worry about sensei for now. We gotta protect the old man, Naruto said confidently. Right, Sakura and Sasuke both replied as they stood in front of the bridge builder. Who are you guys? Naruto wondered. The two in front of them appeared to be missing Nin from the Mist Village, and if he had to hazard a guess, they were brothers. Both had spiked gauntlets that seemed to connect to one another. To Naruto their plan was obvious and they made for an easy target. Who cares who they are? We gotta stop them now, Sasuke insisted. Why don't you just get out of our way, little brats? The taller one said angrily as they charged the group. Their chain had opened up and they were ready to slice the boys in two. How about no? A clone of Naruto's yelled as it appeared from the trees with a set of hand signs already in progress, catching everyone off guard. When he realized the old man might be lying, Naruto created a single shadow clone to trail the group. That way, if they were ambushed, the clone could act on anything. Wind style. Vacuum palm, the clone shouted out, thrusting his hands forward, and before the brothers could react they were thrown into the trees by a massive gust of wind. Although the brothers were knocked into the trees, it was clear that they were still a threat for the moment. What the heck? Sakura exclaimed, since they hadn't seen the clone coming at all. Quit looking stunned and trap them. That's only gonna hold them for a bit, Naruto shouted out. Don't worry Naruto, I've got it covered. Kakashi smirked as he appeared next to the brothers and knocked them out with chops to the head. Unreal, Sakura exclaimed at how easily Naruto and Kakashi-sensei took out both brothers. You're telling me, Sasuke said in shock. He had no idea that Naruto was that skilled and that he could use wind style. With the mysterious ninja defeated, it was time to move on, and for Naruto and Kakashi it was time for some answers. Kakashi tied up the two ninja and turned towards Tazuna. We need to talk to Tazuna, Kakashi said angrily. Crap, the old man sputtered, realizing that he couldn't hide the truth any longer. One long explanation later that would be a waste to write. You're a real idiot, old man, Naruto groaned as he listened to the man explain. Sure, he understood why the old man lied to them. Gato sounded like a monster. However, there were ways that all parties could have done what needed to be done. Excuse me, Tazuna exclaimed. If you told Lord Hokage the situation, I'm sure he could have worked something out with you later. Now you look bad, and you were lucky that we were able to take out those two, Kakashi groaned. Well, I couldn't take that chance. Tazuna groaned. Well then, let's just go and deal with Gato and see what happens. As stupid as you may be, we still have you, and I'd feel guilty if we left you to die, Naruto said confidently. I agree, Sasuke replied. Me too, Sakura added. All of the kids were ready to go, but Kakashi was still nervous. For right now, guys like the Demon Brothers will be fine. However, next time stronger ninja are on the way. Kakashi thought to himself. This was just the beginning, and if he was right, their next opponents would be heavy hitters. Scene skip. After a long walk in the forest and a quick boat ride, the gang arrived in the land of waves. They were walking in the forest near the town, and for one person it was time for answers. Hey Naruto, how long have you been able to use wind style? Sakura wondered. She's right, you never showed that off during the bell test or at any point during class. Sakura wondered. Been able to use it for about 6 months. Naruto replied nonchalantly. Both of his teammates were shocked, but the pink kid decided to act. You're lying. If you had that at your disposal, there was no way you'd be dead last. Sakura said firmly. Whatever, Sakura, it's not important. Naruto paused because he realized they were being followed again. What's wrong? Sakura said nervously. Before she had a chance to say more, Naruto grabbed a kunai and tossed it at the bushes nearby. Okay, you really got calm down, Sakura said nervously as she walked over to the bushes. All they found was a white rabbit. This is bad, very bad, Kakashi thought to himself. That rabbit shouldn't be in this type of area, and it meant that there was an enemy coming, and an extremely powerful one. Guys, I think we've got company, Naruto shouted out. Sakura was about to complain again, but she was pushed to the ground by Sasuke just in time to prevent a sword that resembled a meat cleaver from slicing her in two. What's going on? Not bad for a bunch of brats, a new voice said, appearing in the trees in front of them. The large man had spiky black hair and wore wrappings over his mouth. The baggy pants and cow print wrist guards made for quite an appearance. Zabuza Momochi, the man known as the Demon of the Hidden Mist and a former member of the Seven Swordsmen. It's an honor to meet you, Kakashi said calmly. Internally he was terrified since Zabuza was a nasty opponent. Copy Ninja Kakashi, the honor is all mine. Hand over the old man and things don't have to get ugly. Zabuza said calmly. Afraid not. He's kind of our client, Kakashi said calmly as he unveiled his Sharingan. Naruto looked at the two ninja and got an odd feeling in the back of his head. There was no doubt in his mind that he was powerful, but he could sense another presence nearby. Multi-shadow clone jutsu, Naruto shouted as he created 20 clones to join the fight. Kakashi-sensei, are you ready? The Narutos said firmly. Well now, that's one impressive kid, Zabuza smirked. Thanks, Naruto replied as each clone grabbed a kunai. Well kid, I hope you're ready, Zabuza smirked as he pulled one arm above his head. Hidden Mist Jutsu. Sakura Sasuke, watch the bridge builder. Naruto and I will take on Zabuza, Kakashi shouted. Sakura and Sasuke both questioned why their teacher would ask for Naruto to back her up, but didn't voice their concerns for a moment, replying, right, and then going into positions. Naruto used the mist to send a clone towards the area where he suspected another person was hiding. Naruto focused his chakra and blew away the mist with a small gust. His clone would figure out if he was worried for nothing or otherwise, but this battle was certainly going to be one to remember. Lovely, the brat can use wind style. Zabuza groaned since the mist was gone and he was once again exposed. Wind style opponents were always a pain because of how he liked to fight, and this would be no different. Outer area. While Kakashi and the real him battled against Zabuza, Naruto's clone focused on the person he believed was watching proceedings. Finally arriving at a clearing relatively far away from the battle, he shouted out to the person he believed was hiding, "Come on out. I know you're watching Zabuza fight my team. I just wanna see who you are." The Naruto clone shouted out. My, you're rather interesting, a voice said calmly before appearing in front of him. The person in question was wearing a green kimono that hid a ninja outfit, which was from the hidden mist if the person's headband was any indication. The mask made Naruto believe the person was an Anbu, but Naruto was aware that the person had a secret. I knew that somebody was watching us. The question I have is why? Naruto said calmly. Why do you want to know? The person replied with a curious tone. Because, I don't know if you're friend or foe. Naruto replied. This person was definitely hiding something and he appreciated that. However, he needed to ensure that this battle wouldn't have too many complications. What will you do if I'm a foe? The person replied, grabbing a kunai. For Naruto this was an amusing sight since the person was definitely a foe. I guess then I'll be your opponent. Naruto smirked as he got into a battle position. That's not a good idea. Since you're a clone, I should be able to eliminate you pretty easily. The person required. True, but then the real me will know what happened and we'll be on our guard regardless, Naruto smirked. Then we're at a stalemate, huh? The ninja replied. Yep, Naruto replied as he relaxed his stance. The ninja watching did the same, curious what would happen next. During the time, Naruto was extremely relaxed for a very amusing reason, one that would give him a huge advantage during the rest of the trip. Kurama, you can tell, right? Naruto wondered as he asked his companion in the seal. Thanks to Naruto's relationship with Kurama and the access he was given to the outside world, the pair could find out some very interesting things. Oh yeah, that ninja is a kunoichi. I don't know how she's connected to Zabuza, but we'll find out soon enough. Yep, and I'm curious if she can work around our jutsu. Naruto thought to himself. He was brought from his musing when a large amount of water began rushing towards them and he had to jump out of the way or risk dispelling. It would seem the battle is coming to an end, the ninja replied nonchalantly. He was actually impressed at how she managed to disguise her voice. The choker around her neck no doubt hid the lack of an Adam's apple. It was brilliant, really. You're right, but the winner might not be who you think, Naruto smirked. Thanks to his clones, he knew that Kakashi had the advantage despite a few small setbacks. Zabuza, the person cried out as they ran towards the battlefield. Naruto naturally allowed it, because it gave him time to relax. Looks like this is going to be a very interesting mission after all, Naruto smirked as he dispelled the clone, waiting to see what was next. Scene skip. The real Naruto smiled as he and his team looked at a tired and badly beaten Zabuza. The combination of his clones and wind-style jutsu along with Kakashi's Sharingan made the battle far more difficult for Zabuza than he expected. He managed to capture Kakashi once, but Naruto quickly managed to get him free, and from there it was over. For the observing Sakura and Sasuke, it was clear that their teammate was hiding some incredible skill, and for Sasuke in particular it was sobering since Naruto was clearly hiding his power during their time as students. Those two are strong, Sakura said in shock. Yes, but they also worked very well together. Naruto and Kakashi-sensei are a perfect team despite the lack of time we've had as genin, Sasuke replied. It was something the group would have to discuss sooner or later. They were brought from their musing when Zabuza grunted in pain yet again. Sakura could have sworn she saw a Senbon nail him in the neck. All of a sudden the masked ninja appeared in front of them. Sorry, but I'll be taking things from here, the ninja aide calmly. Well, isn't this a surprise? I didn't think the mist would send a tracking ninja this far out. Kakashi replied with a smile. Thanks to his Sharingan, he knew that Naruto sent a clone away at the start of the battle and realized it was to go after this ninja. For the ninja to be unharmed could only mean one thing in Kakashi's eyes. Well, Zabuza is rather legendary in the Mist Village. Unfortunately, I must be going. The person replied as they grabbed Zabuza and left. What just happened? Sakura said in disbelief. Talk later. I'm a little worn out, Kakashi groaned just before collapsing from the strain of using the Sharingan for so long. Of course, his knowledge that the ninja was fake didn't help matters. What did was the realization that the ninja was female. Scene skip. After a long walk, the group finally arrived at Tezuna's house. Naruto was holding onto Kakashi and Sakura and Sasuke were walking with the bridge builder. When they arrived, they met Tezuna's daughter Tsunami, a fairly attractive woman with tan skin and long blue hair. Naruto had to admit she had a body, but his focus was more on seeing that mysterious ninja again. Tsunami quickly made a place for Kakashi to relax and for the ninja with him to chat. About an hour passed and Sasuke finally lost his patience. So Naruto, wanna tell us why you were holding back during that battle? Sasuke said with a look of annoyance on his face. The only people in the room were Sasuke, Naruto, and arresting Kakashi. What do you mean holding back? Sakura asked nervously. The few techniques Naruto did use were impressive, and if he was holding back, that meant he was a force to be reckoned with. I wasn't holding back, but I hadn't gone all out in a while. Naruto shrugged. Both his teammates' eyes widened at the statement. Then it's a good thing you're gonna have another chance. Kakashi smirked as he woke from his quick slumber just in time to hear Naruto's words. Sensei. Sakura and Sasuke said at the same time, surprised that their teacher had recovered so quickly. Damn, so you figured it out, Sensei. Naruto chuckled, not as surprised as the others. What's going on? Sakura said nervously. She had a bad feeling in the back of her head. That tracker ninja was a fake and Zabuza is still alive. My guess is that the person is there to help Zabuza in case situations like this happen. Naruto explained. How do you know that, Naruto? Sasuke wondered. Remember when Zabuza used the hidden mist jutsu at the beginning of our battle? Naruto reminded them. Yeah, what about it? Sakura interjected. Before that I sensed that another person was nearby, so I used the chance to slip one of my clones away and find said person. That person was the ninja who helped him, right? Sasuke acknowledged. Aha. I couldn't fight them because the clone would be destroyed. Naruto said calmly. He didn't mention the reason being that the ninja was a girl, but hey, he had his moments. Be very careful, Naruto. Zabuza is a very experienced and powerful ninja. What worked once won't work again, and if he trusts a person like that hunter to back them up, we'll need to be ready next time. Kakashi said nervously. Sure, and luckily for us we have a little while to train and get ready. Naruto smirked. Yes, but right now we should get food. All of us could use that, Kakashi smirked. Luckily for them, a few minutes later Tsunami came to them and said dinner was ready. Scene skip. If Naruto had any doubts on helping the people of Wave before dinner, those doubts were over once Tsunami explained just how bad Gato had been. Tsunami told them all about Gato and how he took over Wave, and it infuriated him like no other. This Gato guy's a monster. Naruto glared as she finished the explanation. It was bad enough that he took over the town, but he ruled with a militaristic iron grip. This is the type of scum that I would enjoy killing. Kyuubi growled. Kakashi was equally furious. This is a mission I'd do for free, and I'm sure the third would gladly allow Wave to pay us back little by little. Kakashi thought to himself. Yes, he is Naruto, but we can stop him. Kakashi said calmly. HMPH, you guys will lose just like the rest of them. Inari grunted. Kid, I'm gonna make you this promise right now. We will stop Gato, and if I have to fight Zabuza and his whole army myself to do it, I will. Somebody like this can't be allowed to continue doing what he's doing. Naruto said sternly before going up to his room. Kakashi and his other two teammates both nodded their approval, and the rest of dinner continued without a hitch. Scene skip. Late night arrived and Naruto was still frustrated by everything that he heard from Inari and decided to take a walk around the village. He didn't focus on it earlier because of his other concerns, but now that he could see the damage done, Naruto was out for blood. Kurama, we really need to stop this guy. Naruto said with his rage slowly building. I agree. Luckily you'll be able to use your full power next time. Kurama replied. Yep. Naruto smirked, and when he arrived back he was surprised to find Kakashi waiting for him and with crutches to support him. You should be in bed. Naruto said sternly. You do care. Kakashi teased. I'm not in the mood for games tonight, Kakashi. I'm kinda pissed, and if you haven't noticed, I don't exactly have anybody to help me relieve stress. Naruto groaned. The fact he hadn't had any in a few days didn't help his mood. Sure, there was Tsunami, but with Tazuna and Inari that would be a headache. What about that Kunoichi watching over Zabuza? Kakashi said with a smile. How did you know the hunter nin was a girl? Naruto asked curiously. He knew that Kakashi would figure it out, but he was curious how his sensei discovered the truth. Because of how calm you were when that person showed up. Plus my sense of smell is pretty good also. She hides it well. Outside of some of the strongest Inuzuka hounds or a Byakugan user, it would be impossible to find out. Between the smell and the choker, it was pretty easy to figure out. Naruto smirked. Well then, how about we use that to our advantage? Kakashi smirked. Because of their time training together, a little of Naruto's deviousness had rubbed off on Kakashi. What did you have in mind? Naruto smirked. He was up for a fun plan, and since things were as they were, he was definitely in the mood for a stress reliever. Scene skip. The next day had arrived, and after breakfast a still weakened Kakashi led the group into a forest in order to both prepare them for the rematch with Zabuza and allow Naruto to work on his plan to make the battle much easier. There were plenty of medicinal herbs in the area, and Naruto figured that whoever the ninja was would use the herbs to heal Zabuza and provide opportunity for him to work his magic. So sensei, what are we doing out here? Sakura asked nervously. She was still very concerned about Zabuza and didn't want to do anything rash. Zabuza won't be healthy for a little while, so I figured I'd give you guys some actual training for once. Zabuza will be ready for me and Naruto, but not necessarily you guys, especially Sasuke. Kakashi smirked. Me, Sasuke said in surprise. I'm going to be giving you guys chakra control training. But for Sasuke, we're going to help awaken your Sharingan. Kakashi said happily. Sasuke grinned wider than a loon since he saw what his sensei could do with his. Imagining his own Sharingan was enough to get him really excited. Now Sasuke, don't get a boner just because your eyes are going to awaken. Naruto teased. HMPH, like you'll be able to take me after I get my Sharingan. Sasuke huffed. He knew that with his new weapon the time had come to surpass Naruto. Not really. I've been sparing against the Sharingan for the last 6 months thanks to Kakashi-sensei. You can't compare at all, Naruto smirked. What? Sasuke shouted out in disbelief. What do you mean by that, Naruto? Sakura questioned. This was the moment of truth for Naruto, and it was time to let his teammates on the secret. Kakashi-sensei has been helping me train since I failed the last test. I've kept it a secret because the civilian council was always gonna get in my way, and the villagers don't like me much either. Naruto revealed nonchalantly, stunning his two teammates. Hold on. Why would the civilian council be so against you? Sakura wondered. Naruto was a prankster, yes, but that still seemed extreme. The reason why is because of the fact that the nine-tailed fox wasn't defeated by the fourth Hokage. That's just a story. Kakashi spoke up. He knew how difficult it was for Naruto, so decided to tell them himself. What really happened then? Sasuke wondered. The nine-tailed fox was sealed inside of Naruto's body by the fourth Hokage. It was done on his birthday, and the seal caused the fourth to die, Kakashi said bluntly, shocking Sasuke and Sakura. No way, Sakura exclaimed. She heard people call Naruto a demon and she never understood it. Now it all made sense. Why would the fourth Hokage do that? Isn't that extremely dangerous, sealing a beast like that into a child? Sasuke replied. He knew a little about sealing thanks to some of the books in the Uchiha's old compound. He couldn't do seals for crap, but he knew about it. Since his mother was the previous host of the nine-tailed fox, he was uniquely qualified to host it again. Kakashi explained. All three teens were shocked by the revelation, Naruto in particular. Wait a minute, you never told me that my mom was the previous host. Naruto exclaimed. Oh, yeah, forgot, Kakashi shrugged. He really can't believe he hadn't mentioned that until now. Anyway, the fourth Hokage sealed the fox into my body, and from there everything went to crap. Stupid father. Naruto groaned, unaware he said the last part out loud. Wait a minute, the fourth Hokage was your dad. Sakura screamed out. Sasuke was equally stunned by the news. Oh, yeah, didn't mean to say that, Naruto said apologetically. Damn, now this is gonna be complicated. Naruto thought to himself. The reason why I insisted on training him was because I was the fourth student and I owed it to him to watch over his son. Naruto's father saved my life more times than I can count. Kakashi admitted. Okay, enough depressing stuff. It's time to train, Naruto shouted out, since he didn't want to go down that topic. How are we supposed to train after hearing all of this? Sakura shouted out. Because we're all ninja and the world isn't all sunshines and rainbows. Kakashi-sensei told us his secret, and I'm sure Sasuke told you his story at some point. Naruto grunted. Yeah, he did. Sakura said solemnly, remembering that Sasuke's whole family was slaughtered by a brother he considered a hero. How about we take a 10-minute break before we start training? I'll even give you guys some space to relieve stress. Kakashi smirked. The three teens blushed heavily since what he was implying was a pretty embarrassing thing. He totally knew about our threesomes before training, didn't he? Sakura groaned. Yep, and I think he used it as an excuse to spend more time at the stone. Naruto groaned. Despite his annoyance, he was very much up for the idea. He just wasn't going to say it. Well, I could use the relief. Sasuke shrugged. Much like Naruto, he was pretty horny. You guys are all perverts. Sakura pouted, though she had to admit that she wanted it also. So are you in or not? Sasuke deadpanned. Yay, I'm in. Sakura admitted. As Kakashi left Team 7 to bond, he grabbed a privacy seal so the kids would be alone. Scene skip. Kakashi didn't anticipate how much stress his students had, and it was only when 30 minutes had passed that Sasuke appeared from the clearing alone. Where are the others? Kakashi asked, almost afraid of the answer. Naruto had way more stress than I did, so I left him with Sakura. She didn't mind, and so I let it happen. Sasuke groaned. He really didn't like it, but he knew that Sakura was willing, and so was Naruto. You do realize that if you're gonna master the Sharingan, you're gonna need way more stamina than that. Kakashi teased. Please, Naruto is a stamina monster. He could probably have a 10-hour orgy and be fine after a small nap. Sasuke said in spite. That may be true, but that doesn't change the problem at hand. Kakashi smirked. Hey Kakashi-sensei, you were in the Anbu before, right? Sasuke wondered. Naruto bringing up his past reminded him of something that bothered him big time about the night his family was killed. Of course he had only considered this stuff recently. Yes, and I know where you're going with this. Itachi is one of the noblest men in this village, and for years I've wondered what would make him kill the entire clan. Kakashi replied. So you think there's something behind it too? Sasuke said nervously. Many things about that night bothered him, and part of his desire to confront his brother was to find the truth. No Sasuke, I don't think there is. I know there is. Kakashi said firmly. The two would have spoken further, but Naruto and Sakura appeared from the forest, both with the distinct smell of on their bodies, and Sakura was sporting a small limp. Sakura was clearly satisfied, but Naruto wasn't. Sorry about that. I figured that if I went all out, Sakura wouldn't be able to move for a few days, and we can't have that. Naruto smirked, causing Sakura to blush heavily. As much as I hate to say it, I'm not up for training you guys either. Let's just start tomorrow, Kakashi said with a hint of mirth. Itachi was one of his best friends in the Anbu, and the fourth was his teacher. Remembering how they impacted two of his students was a depressing thought. Scene skip. The whole gang was back in the forest, ready for their training the next day, bright and early. Fortunately for them, Tazuna wasn't going out to the bridge for a few more hours, so a training schedule could easily be figured out. It was eventually decided that they would train for an hour and a half on chakra control, and then Sasuke and Naruto would train privately to help him awaken his Sharingan. Once that was over, Sakura, Sasuke and a few of Naruto's shadow clones would go to the bridge, while the real Naruto stayed behind to watch Tsunami. Of course, for Naruto it was a perfect chance to enjoy the bridge builder's daughter if he did everything right. He figured it would take a few days, so he wasn't in any rush. So what are we gonna work on? Sakura asked calmly as the group stood in front of a few trees. You two are gonna learn to climb a tree without using your hands. Kakashi said calmly. No way, Sakura said in shock. Yes way. Naruto, please demonstrate. Kakashi smirked. Got it, Naruto said calmly as he made his way towards one of the trees. His two teammates looked on in shock as Naruto walked up the tree with just his feet. You need to apply just the right amount of chakra in order to stay on the tree without falling but stay secure. The balance is what makes it so tricky, Kakashi said calmly as Naruto walked down. Sakura should be fine since she doesn't have as much chakra to balance. Naruto teased, causing Sakura to protest. As for you Sasuke, it's a bit harder. Guys like us with more chakra can struggle with this technique. How long did it take you to master? Sasuke wondered. Took me a little under 3 days, Naruto said nonchalantly. That of course was without shadow clones since Kakashi was feeling particularly brutal that week. His massive chakra made it a real headache. Then let's make a deal Naruto, Sasuke replied. Oh, Naruto spoke up in amusement. If I can master this technique by the end of tomorrow, you'll teach me how to do shadow clones. What happens if you fail? Naruto said with a fanged grin. He hadn't pulled off a prank in a while and he was up for it. Well, I'll leave that punishment up to you, Sasuke said confidently. Works for me, Naruto said with an evil grin. Sasuke, you do realize that Naruto's the prank king, right? Sakura asked nervously. Don't worry Sakura, I won't do anything too bad. Naruto smirked. What he didn't say was that Sasuke could easily master it in a day because of how smart he was. Well, let's get going, Sasuke smirked. Scene skip. After about an hour of training, Sasuke and Naruto separated from the group in order to do a little private training. For Sasuke, this was a chance to finally see how powerful his teammate really was. He saw a glimpse of his strength before, but now it was time to really get going. So Naruto, how are you going to awaken my Sharingan? Sasuke asked curiously. After all, Kakashi had indicated that Naruto was his best chance of getting his family's legendary dojutsu. Because for the next 30 minutes I'm gonna show you what I can really do. In theory it should awaken your Sharingan. If not, you'll just be in pain, Naruto said with a savage grin on his face. Sasuke was a combination of nervous and excited since he knew that Naruto was getting serious. Alright then, bring it on, Sasuke said confidently as he got into his stance. Before we get started, I wanted to show you something, Naruto smirked as he grabbed a small black scroll. Sasuke noticed that it was a storage seal, which instantly made him nervous since Naruto never revealed something like that. When Naruto revealed its contents, Sasuke was shocked. What the hell? Sasuke said in shock. The seal contained a blood-red katana that was about 3 feet long with a black hilt. Naruto couldn't hide the demonic look on his face. Let me introduce you to Red Fury. Apparently my mom was also a swordsman and I was eventually gonna get it when I was old enough. Naruto smirked. I've done a little bit of practice with it, so this will be trial work. Oh crap, Sasuke groaned, realizing that he was in deep trouble. Get ready Sasuke. You're gonna be quite the ninja once this is all said and done, Naruto smirked as he got into his own stance with Red Fury. Scene skip. After 30 minutes of intense training, Naruto and an extremely beaten up Sasuke returned to Kakashi and an exhausted Sakura. Thanks to Red Fury, Naruto was able to give Sasuke some extremely intense training. While he struggled at first, Sasuke got the hang of fighting against Naruto, and by the time they stopped, Naruto felt like he was extremely close to awakening. So guys, how was your? Sakura started to ask, but seeing how beat up Sasuke was stopped. What the heck happened? Sakura exclaimed. Naruto, you didn't use that, did you? Kakashi exclaimed as he recognized the type of wounds that Sasuke had. Yeah, I did. He's a little beat up, but he'll be fine after a little rest. Naruto smirked. Kakashi was one of the few people who knew about Naruto's blade outside of Naruto and the third Hokage. He didn't have a trainer either, which was pretty annoying under the circumstances. Good grief, Kakashi groaned, realizing that things just got complicated. Wait a minute. What did he use on Sasuke? He looks like hell. I used my secret weapon Sakura. You'll see it soon enough. Naruto smiled demonically. For Kakashi, that was an indication that Naruto was about to reveal his weapon in the final battle. So how close is he? Kakashi smirked, referring to Sasuke's Sharingan. I'd say a day or two away, Naruto said with a fanged grin. Well, let's go get ready for our day, Kakashi replied calmly. Zabuza was coming, and if Sasuke can awaken his Sharingan, he'll become a powerful weapon. That is if Naruto didn't kill him first. After all, His sword Red Fury used to belong to his mother, and there was a very specific reason it was called Red Fury. Naruto Uzumaki had certainly been enjoying his last few days in the Land of Waves. His mornings were spent training his teammate Sasuke Uchiha to help him awaken his Sharingan. After a small break to check the field where the herbs were found, it was mission time, and he sent 30 of his shadow clones to help build the bridge while the real one stayed at home to guard Tsunami and Inari. Of course he volunteered for that in order to seduce Tsunami, but he wasn't going to say that. The first day of guard duty was a failure due to Inari getting in the way. Needless to say, he took it out on Sasuke the next morning, and he was pleasantly surprised when he noticed the Sharingan awaken just as he knocked his teammate out. The second day wasn't as boring since Inari spent the day helping out around the village, which left Naruto alone with Tsunami as he wanted all along. Naruto took full advantage of this time by using the Temptation's touch to get Tsunami interested, and was pleasantly surprised when she instantly kissed him. Unbeknownst to Naruto, Tsunami overheard Naruto's conversation with Kakashi about his lack of recently and thought of her own dry spell. Needless to say, he spent the rest of the day screwing Tsunami around the house, and he barely managed to clean everything up by the time the rest of his teammates returned. Unfortunately, Naruto's other objective hadn't been obtained yet, and he was pretty sure Zabuza would be fully restored to strength the next day, which meant he'd have only one girl out of this trip. Naruto was currently relaxing in the field since Sasuke got a day off from his training, and he wasn't pleased. What a drag. Zabuza will be ready tomorrow and I still haven't gotten a chance to see her. Naruto groaned, annoyed that his plan had failed. I wonder who you're talking about, Mr. Ninja. A voice said softly out of nowhere. Naruto looked behind him and couldn't believe his eyes. It was a beautiful girl with long black hair, pale skin, and large dark brown eyes. She was wearing a pink sleeveless kimono with pale red edges and plum-colored swirls, and a white obi along with light brown sandals. It was the ninja that worked with Zabuza, and she decided to show her face this time. Okay, that's just unfair. I knew you were a girl, but why do you have to be so freaking hot? Naruto groaned as he turned to face his until now unnamed foe. I'm surprised you figured out that I was a girl so easily. My choker hides my neck, and because I'm around Zabuza so much, I smell like blood. The ninja admitted. The fact she didn't bring up the tracker part Naruto found slightly amusing. Oh yeah, the scent of blood is unmistakable, but you also can't mistake your female scent. I have an incredibly good sense of smell, and I realized that when we were relaxing in that clearing. Today simply confirmed what I suspected all along. Naruto smirked. The ninja couldn't help but blush, but smiled a bit. Then I guess I was right to be so cautious the last few days. I've had to wait till much later to get the herbs I needed to heal Zabuza because of you guys spending so much time here. The ninja teased. When did you realize we were waiting here for you? Naruto smirked. He was annoyed that his plan was so obvious, but considering that she was in front of him now, he wasn't too angry. When you let me go that first day, I was suspicious of you, and I did notice you sighting there once you arrived. I've been a missing nin with Zabuza for almost 8 years. Do you honestly believe that you aren't the first ninja that Zabuza and I have encountered on our journey? Or that I have a few tricks that allow me to stay hidden? The ninja revealed. Naruto was shocked by most of what she said, but one thing in particular stood out. Wait a minute. You've been with Zabuza for 8 years. You're not much older than me. Naruto exclaimed in disbelief. Naruto was 12, and based on his estimate, the ninja in front of him was no older than 16. That meant that she was with Zabuza for half of her life. Let's just say my life growing up wasn't very easy, the ninja said calmly as she began to explain her past. Naruto learned that her name was Haku and that she grew up just outside the Hidden Mist village. She and her family lived in peace until her dad found out that she had an ice bloodline and freaked out. Naruto then learned of the bloodline purges and the civil war and her mentor's role in both. He learned that much like him, Haku lived alone and had to fight for everything until Zabuza saved her. He actually had a bit of respect for Zabuza for that, but it was a strange situation indeed. Haku also learned his name was Naruto Uzumaki, and while she was shocked by his name, she didn't ask anything else. Wow, Haku, I don't know what to say. Naruto replied. He had it rough, but she had it far worse. Don't worry about it. I've accepted my past and I'm just trying to move forward. Haku said calmly before getting up to leave. Even though they were enemies, Naruto felt guilty not warning her about his suspicions. You do realize that there's no way in hell Gato is gonna let you guys live, right? Naruto said sternly. It was only fair that he told her his concerns. She could have easily killed him if she wanted to, but she held back. Plus, she didn't have to reveal herself to him. You forget that Zabuza and I can kill him easily. Haku scoffed. Naruto was well aware that Haku and Zabuza would be fine, but he felt like he had to get his 2 cents in. Well, yeah, if you guys are at full strength, he doesn't stand a chance. However, what happens if he ambushes you guys? Naruto warned. Haku paused to think about what he said and came to a shocking realization. In other words, he's probably gonna wait until after you guys fight us and ambush the whole group with some of his goons. Then he can kill the bridge builder, not pay anybody, and maybe get some slaves in the process. Naruto explained. It was actually a pretty brilliant idea in a backwards kind of way. What makes you so sure he'd do that? Haku said nervously. She wasn't surprised at the idea, but by his certainty that he would do it. Ask yourself this. He's gonna pay you guys a whole lot of money to kill a man, and he knows that you've failed once already. Why in the world would he keep you guys around? Naruto replied. What Naruto said certainly had merit, but there was no reason for him to tell her his thoughts. Let's say you're right. What good does that do you to tell me that? Haku wondered curiously. Because this place needs that bridge. You've no doubt seen what Gato has done, and I'm sure as somebody who's been through what you have that you can't let things stay like this. Naruto replied. He wasn't gonna say that it was because he wanted to her senseless, but that certainly played a role. Haku couldn't help but groan since he was right. In the few walks she's had in the village, she was disgusted by what she saw. So let's say you're right. What would you have us do? Easy. You come to the battle like normal, but we only pretend to fight. Then when Gato arrives, we kick the crap out of him. Kill him and steal all of his money to give to Wave. Naruto smirked. I see. Haku smiled since it was an idea her master would appreciate. Yep. So what say you, Haku? Naruto smirked. I say deal. Haku smirked as she came up to Naruto and shocked him by planting a small kiss on his lips. It was a short kiss, but for Naruto it definitely caught him off guard. What was that for? Not that I'm complaining. Naruto said with a slight shock. After hearing about her past, Naruto felt bad for his plan to seduce her. He was going to let her go until the kiss, but clearly that changed. I noticed the look of lust on your face the minute you looked at me today, and I figured I'd give you a reward for the warning about Gato. Haku smirked, causing Naruto's pants to tighten a bit. Now he was the one who recognized the look of lust on somebody's face. Sounds good to me. So how long till Zabuza's gonna need you? Naruto smirked. He may have felt bad for his original plan, but since he was getting laid, he wasn't going to complain. I've got about 30 minutes. Haku smirked back. Oh yeah, Naruto knew that he could have some fun. Then let's make them count. Naruto smirked, knowing that he had more than enough time to enjoy his latest catch. After getting dressed, both teens stood in the middle of the forest wondering what's next. So now what? Naruto said calmly. He didn't know what to do now that he got the girl he desired. Well, I'll tell Zabuza about your theory, and if he agrees, then everything is fine. Haku smiled. Oh yeah, do you mind not telling Zabuza that we had? Naruto said nervously. Why? Haku wondered with her innocent smile. She found it funny that he was worrying about Zabuza after the fact, but they were both teenagers. The guy is one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. I kinda wanna live. Naruto replied sheepishly. With Kakashi's help he could fight Zabuza, but alone he would have a hard time beating him. Well, unless he used Kurama's power, but he didn't want to do that. Zabuza is very familiar with, so he'll know for sure. Haku replied with a smile, knowing how Naruto would take it. Lovely, Naruto deadpanned. But he won't kill you. Maim you a bit but not kill. Haku explained, hoping that would help. That's not helping. Naruto deadpanned. Well, goodbye Naruto. This was fun. Haku smirked as she walked away with a swing on her hips that almost made him want another round. That girl is something else. Naruto smirked. One day all of your womanizing is going to get you killed. The Kyuubi joked. Yeah, but hopefully not today. Naruto replied. Now he had to deal with explaining what happened to Kakashi and the rest of his team. Scene skip. So let me get this straight. You want us to work with Zabuza and his partner in order to kill Gato, take his money and give it all to Wave? Kakashi said in shock. When everybody returned from the bridge, Naruto mentioned that he had a plan and Kakashi brought the team together for a private discussion. Naruto replied. He did leave out the part about him seducing Haku. Kakashi would figure it out, but he didn't need to tell Sakura and Sasuke. What makes you think he'll go along with it? Zabuza, I mean. Kakashi wondered. There was no doubt in his mind that Naruto had seduced the ninja with him, but getting Zabuza himself to agree, that was another story. He was naturally cautious, and whether or not he would go for the plan was another story. Because this way he doesn't risk his life or his partner's and he still gets his money. Naruto explained calmly. I see, Kakashi replied. Kakashi had to admit that it was a clever plan and one Zabuza would appreciate as a missing nin. Does that mean all of our training was for nothing? Sakura groaned. Hardly. You are going to need chakra control in due time anyway, and Sasuke got his Sharingan. This mission couldn't have gone any better if it was planned out that way. Kakashi smirked. The truth is that Kakashi knew the old man was lying from the start. He was an ex-Anbu and Tazuna was a terrible liar. The mission's true purpose was to advance Sasuke and Sakura and give Naruto a chance to stretch his wings and slowly reveal his real power to his teammates. The fact that Sasuke gained the Sharingan was a bonus and one Lord Hokage would definitely approve of. Well then, I guess we can just relax till dinner, Sakura said calmly as she got up to leave. Sounds good to me, Sasuke replied calmly as he followed them. He was suspicious of something else, but under the circumstances he wasn't about to complain. Once the door was closed, Kakashi and Naruto were left alone. I was wondering how long it would take you to seduce her. Kakashi smirked, knowing what his student was up to. Hey, it's not my fault. She figured out what we were up to. Naruto protested. It really was annoying. So how pretty we talking? Kakashi wondered. Puts most of my girls to shame, Naruto said shamelessly. I see, Kakashi replied. He did a mental count of the girls he believed Naruto was with and had to admit that he was impressed. Of course he wouldn't say that out loud. We'll talk later, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto smirked. Tomorrow was certainly going to be fun and Naruto knew it. Scene skip. Naruto, Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke were relaxing at the bridge, knowing that Zabuza was on his way. As proof of how seriously the group was taking things, Naruto had his sword already by his side ready to go. Here we go, Naruto said with a smile. He was looking forward to killing the bandits and this was definitely gonna be fun. Well, isn't this a surprise? I didn't expect you'd have a sword, brat. Zabuza smirked as he appeared with Haku by his side. Yeah, I don't often use it, but I have it for a rainy day, Naruto smirked. I can see that. By the way, Haku here told me about your plan and I like it. Sneaky as hell and worthy of a seasoned shinobi, Zabuza smiled. Is that all Haku told you? Naruto said nervously, since despite Haku's mask being off, only Naruto and Kakashi knew about her real gender. We're working together, kid. That's all you need to know. Zabuza answered. Kakashi smiled, since it meant that Zabuza wasn't going to kill Naruto. At least not yet. And it meant they had some time to kill. So now that we're all allies, is there anything you guys want to know about us or vice versa? I wouldn't mind asking Zabuza something. Naruto said calmly. Something about Haku's story bothered him, and this morning he asked Kakashi to get a look at his old bingo book. He wanted to figure out something, and the book was the only way he could learn the truth. What's that, brat? Zabuza asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, I got a look at your file in the bingo book and something doesn't make sense. You were one of the Mist Village's elite warriors, and despite the bloodline purges you stuck around for a long time. What in the world made you want to become a missing ninja all of a sudden? Naruto wondered. It didn't add up to him and he wanted answers. Zabuza smiled since the kid was clearly smart. If you must know, I left because of the fourth Mizukage Yagura and his unique situation. Oh, Kakashi replied. It seems Naruto had hit the proverbial jackpot on Zabuza. In truth, Kakashi was just as surprised as he was when he heard the news. Zabuza looked at Haku and the ninja calmly before beginning to speak. Have you ever heard of the term Jinchuriki? Zabuza wondered. I know the term, but you should explain it to my students. Kakashi said calmly. If what Zabuza was saying was right, then this was huge. It refers to one of the holders of 9 legendary beasts known as the Biju. They're chakra monsters of the highest level. The one-tailed beast is rumored to have more chakra than the 7 swordsmen combined, and there are 9 of them. They go from 1 tail to 9, and seeing one on the battlefield would mean death. Your village should know all about the power of the 9 tails. Zabuza said calmly. What about them? Naruto said nervously. He obviously knew about them because of Kurama, but didn't want to tell the group his secret just yet. Yagura was the holder of the 3-tailed turtle known as the Sanbi. He was also one of my best friends, and despite everything he did, I stood by him. Zabuza said solemnly. So he held Isobu, huh? Kurama replied calmly. So what changed? Kakashi wondered nervously. This was heading down a bad path and he didn't like it. One day I entered his office and noticed that Yagura was talking with a man with an orange mask with a single eye hole and long jacket. Clearly he wasn't expecting me because the man vanished, leaving me and Yagura alone. It couldn't be, Kakashi thought nervously. Thanks to the third's reports, he knew some of the details of the night his teacher died and remembered mention of a man with an orange mask. Now it appeared that the man behind it had done other nasty deeds before turning his attention to the leaf. When I tried to ask Yagura about him, he freaked out and had an Anbu attack me. The weird part is that his eyes briefly went red, kinda like your Sharingan, Kakashi. No way, Kakashi exclaimed. Impossible, Sasuke shouted as well. Ah, that's right, your student is an Uchiha. Well, that's another matter for another day, Zabuza smirked. The reason I left is because I realized that Yagura was being controlled by the masked man, and if I stayed I was going to die eventually. You left the village because you wanted to find out more about the man who controlled your friend. Kakashi replied. On some level he understood that. That's right. I ran into Haku here at a town not far from the mist, and we've been together ever since. It was a tough life, but we've managed so far. Zabuza said solemnly, for once looking like a defeated man instead of the proud swordsman. If you don't mind my asking, why didn't you use that sword in your first battle with Zabuza? Haku asked calmly. Haku's right about that. If you're really able to wield Red Fury, then you're something special, kid. Zabuza said calmly. How did you know it was called Red Fury? Naruto said nervously. Only a few people should have known about that. Because back when I was part of Kiri, its owner was almost as famous as the Yellow Flash. What's your full name, kid? Zabuza wondered. Naruto smiled, since this was his chance to further ensure he didn't maim him for sleeping with Haku. My full name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I've always wondered about my mom's life as a ninja. Naruto revealed. Zabuza was stunned for a moment, but you could hear the amusement in his voice. Well, I'll be damned. So the Yellow Flash and the Red Habanero finally hooked up. Hold on, how did you know that his dad was the 4th Hokage? Sakura protested. Girly, anybody who knew about the Red Habanero knew about her feelings for the 4th. They were considered a power couple to almost everybody. I shed a tear when I heard they died from the fox's attack, and I wasn't the only one. Zabuza revealed, much to Naruto's shock. I see, Sakura replied calmly. So do you wanna know the real reason that blade is called the Red Fury? I thought it just sounded cool. Naruto shrugged. Admittedly, he never practiced much with the blade since he didn't have a teacher and thus far he hadn't learned anything. In fact, the only person who was aware of the sword was Tenten, and that was by pure accident. Their conversation that night wasn't a pleasant one, though the angry afterwards was. Well, the name is cool, but it's because Kushina used it to channel the power of the fox during her battles. I heard about her using a weird power with her blade, and once my comrade explained it, I figured the rest out naturally. What? Naruto and the rest of the group exclaimed. I never knew Lady Kushina's sword could do that. Kakashi exclaimed. He was the one who gave Naruto the sword, and if Naruto could use that power, he would become a major threat. Unless you knew what a Jinchuriki's chakra looked like, you wouldn't know. Only reason I knew is because I saw Yagura use it so many times as a kid. Okay, enough talk about how cool Naruto is, Sasuke growled, getting jealous. Ah, is the baby Uchiha getting upset? Zabuza taunted, hoping to get a rise out of Sasuke. Why you? Sasuke growled before Naruto stopped him in his tracks. This guy gives Kakashi-sensei problems. You're no match for him, Sasuke. Naruto said coldly as he stared at his teammate. Fine, Sasuke pouted. Ha, you've got a good head on your shoulders, kid. Zabuza joked. Why don't I give you a lesson on that sword of yours? We've got a little while longer and I'm bored. Sounds good. Naruto smirked as he created a few shadow clones in order to maximize the time. Didn't see this coming. He's somehow appealed to the human side of the demon of the hidden mist. Maybe we can get even more out of this day than I thought, Kakashi thought to himself. Scene skip. 10 minutes passed and Naruto had learned a whole lot about his blade from Zabuza. Interestingly enough, Naruto hid the fact he was the new host of the Fox, hoping to have one trump card he could hide, but other than that the two had bonded, including a private chat about his intentions for Haku. The two would have spoken more, but one of the clones Naruto sent to watch the path to the bridge dispelled, meaning that Gato was on his way. So how do you guys wanna do this? Naruto smirked. You said there was something like 50 men, right? Zabuza smirked. Aha, let me guess, free for all Slaughterfest. Naruto smirked as he pulled out Red Fury. Bingo, Zabuza smirked as he had his sword ready to go. Sounds like fun. Sasuke smirked as he got his new Sharingan ready. He was still furious about all the Naruto talk, and the bandits were perfect cannon fodder. Well, this is gonna be good. Kakashi smiled, getting his Sharingan ready as well. What should I do? Sakura said nervously. Sakura wasn't as strong as the others. Relax and let the boys have their fun. Haku smiled calmly, wanting to relax for a bit. While Zabuza and Naruto were training, Haku revealed her gender to the group, and his two teammates realized that Naruto had seduced her, much to their annoyance. Sasuke was annoyed because Naruto added yet another girl, and Sakura was mad because she still desired her teammate on a small level. Okay, Sakura said calmly. Eventually Gato and his crew arrived through the mist. The look of humor on his face. So Zabuza, did you fail me, yet, again? Gato said haughtily. The man was in a business suit and Coke bottle glasses. Flanking him was a large group of thugs and bandits. Of course the haughty look changed when he realized that Zabuza was unharmed and seemingly going against him. Yoho, I heard you were going to betray me, so I decided to do the same. Zabuza smirked. What the hell? Gato cried out. It was clear that he was in trouble. Alright everybody, let's go crazy. Naruto smirked as everybody charged. What followed was a slaughter like nothing most of the ninja there had ever seen. Gato's men were systematically destroyed, and as Gato looked on in horror, Naruto snuck behind him and used a jutsu he picked up from Ino to steal the combination to his safe before going back to the slaughter. Of course, Gato himself eventually fell to Zabuza's blade and the battle was over. As Naruto and the group smiled at their victory, Inari and a bunch of villagers came by to join the fight. Well, that was fun. Kakashi smirked as victory was secured. Scene skip. With victory secured and Gato firmly out the village, the gang took a week to rest before returning to the Leaf Village for a job well done. The real Naruto spent most of the week having with Tsunami and Haku back at the bridge builder's house while Zabuza and the rest of his team along with a group of clones built the bridge. Naruto considered it payback for him tricking them in the first place, and Kakashi understood it. Zabuza may not have been thrilled with the arrangement, but Haku was happy, so he didn't complain much. Tazuna was initially furious but realized that her daughter and grandson hadn't been happier in a long time. Sasuke didn't really care, while Sakura was furious since she tried to get in on a few sessions herself. Like that, a week passed by and the bridge was complete. Now that the bridge is done, I think it needs a name, Kakashi said with a smile as the group stood in front of the now completed bridge. How about the Great Naruto Bridge? Tsunami suggested with a blush. I'm okay with that. A beaming Naruto smirked at the suggestion. Kakashi and Zabuza both nodded their approval, and it was certainly an amusing situation. Why not? The kid was the reason that everything seemed to work out. Tazuna groaned in annoyance. He was thrilled that Naruto was leaving, but apparently he promised to send a clone by once in a while to reacquaint himself with his daughter and her son. Well then, let's get going, Kakashi smirked. Hey Zabuza, what are you gonna do now? Thanks to the money we took from Gato, you should be good to go. Naruto wondered. He would have loved having Zabuza as his sword master since he wanted to start using Red Fury more often, especially now that he knew he could channel Kurama's chakra with it. Ironically enough, he never did mention that he was the fox to Zabuza, but he had a feeling that Zabuza knew the answer. While you were having your fun with Haku, I sent a letter to the Hidden Mist that said I'd be living in the Leaf Village for now. I figured a new start would help me and Haku out nicely, and if they can deal with a crazy like you, then they can deal with me. And the Mist agreed, Naruto said in shock. He knew how valuable the guy was to the Mist and never imagined that they'd give up on him. The Mist Village gets a trade agreement with the Land of Waves and a few other trinkets, including what really happened to the fourth Mizukage as collateral. The new Mizukage agreed to the deal as long as he didn't reveal Mist Village secrets to the Leaf. Kakashi smirked. So everybody wins. Naruto smirked. Exactly, Haku said happily as she kissed Naruto on the cheek. She found out that he had multiple girls waiting for him at home, but the fact that she knew that she was among his top didn't hurt. Plus Haku realized that she couldn't sat his tremendous lust by herself. Good grief, Zabuza chuckled. Anyway, let's get going, Naruto said calmly before a new voice called out to him. Naruto, Inari said happily. What's up, kid? Naruto said happily. Despite how annoying he was at first, Inari grew on him. In many ways he reminded him of a mini-him, and that made it easier to tolerate his outbursts. Thank you for everything, Inari said calmly. The two had developed quite a bond, and Inari was going to treasure it for the rest of his days. Naruto smiled at the young man before calmly replying, of course. As the group left the Land of Waves, what was originally thought of as AC rank mission had become so much more. As Team 7 Zabuza and Haku stood in the third Hokage's office, the feeling in the room was one of amusement instead of nerves. Kakashi had just finished the mission report and everyone was waiting to find out what the Hokage thought of the events in the Land of Waves. Let me see if I have this right. The client lied about the severity of the mission, and instead of some simple bandits, you were dealing with one of the most influential civilians in the ninja world in Gato. The third Hokage chuckled. That's right, and we continued the mission anyway because my students wanted to do the right thing, Kakashi said calmly. The third coughed a bit before continuing. Your team then took out the Demon Brothers, a skilled pair of assassins, and then fought off Zabuza here before you even arrived in the village. The third continued. Well, it was more me and Kakashi-sensei, but yeah, Naruto said with a smirk. Sakura and Sasuke grunted at Naruto's words, but they both agreed it was true. The third wasn't pleased that Naruto interrupted but continued nonetheless. So over the course of 2 weeks in Wave you found out the truth and managed to not only save the Land of Waves, but gained us a new ally in the Land of Waves and 2 new shinobi in Zabuza and Haku. Not to mention, Naruto here has a bridge named after him. The third finished. It truly was a remarkable situation, and the third wouldn't have believed it if he wasn't seeing the report himself. That's about right. It really was something in the end. Zabuza smirked, remembering how Haku came to him with the plan and how his eyes lit up with excitement. Then all I can say is that I'm glad I made the right call in sending you. The third smiled his approval. What do you mean the right call? You act as though you knew this mission was going to go pear-shaped from the start. Naruto questioned. Why Naruto, why would you think I'd do that? I'm the third Hokage, not some petty genin. The third smiled innocently. I guess. Naruto groaned. The groan was more because it was obvious that the third was aware of the lie, and if he didn't know better, the old man did it to spite Naruto. Admittedly, I didn't think it would be this bad, but I knew he wasn't telling the complete truth. The third said again, causing everybody to sweat drop. It was a risk to send a group of genin on the mission, but considering who was involved, it was an easy decision to make. I like him. Zabuza smirked in approval. Really, Zabuza? Haku deadpanned. It worked out anyway, so it's all good. Naruto smirked despite his annoyance. Naruto got a new sword teacher and 2 new women to his growing collection. This was about as good of a mission as he could have had. Plus he gets the reward for an A- rank mission. Well, congratulations anyway on a mission well done. I want to speak privately to Haku and Zabuza, but the rest of you are dismissed. The third said calmly. Thank you, Lord Hokage. Kakashi and the group replied before leaving. Now that he was back at home, Naruto had some other women to focus on. Scene skip. Early morning arrived and Naruto was in bed with Ino and Haku licking his shaft. He reflected on an extremely interesting week. After speaking with the Hokage, Haku and Zabuza moved into the same apartment building as Naruto, which meant he had easy access to his teacher and newest lover. When he introduced Haku to the other girls, she got along with everyone but particularly Ino and Hinata because of a shared love of flowers. Naruto found the idea that Haku liked flowers as much as they did a bit ironic since she was an ice user, but it was her interest. Then of course there was Tenten, who was furious at Naruto once again. The idea that he asked Zabuza to be his teacher instead of her really drove her bonkers, considering her knowledge of weapons and her place as the Leaf's weapon mistress even at a young age. Naruto told Tenten that the reason why he didn't have her teach him was because he didn't want people to stop coming to her family's store because of their hatred of him. Tenten quickly relented, understanding that he was looking out for her, but he did have to her stupid as an apology, something he did with glee. Hey Naruto, what are you thinking about this time? Ino asked, pulling him from his thought process. I was thinking about the last week and how much time we've spent together. I mean, I haven't left the village in a week and neither have any of us. Naruto said calmly. Despite the success of his C-rank mission, he had been stuck on D ranks for the last week since his return. I don't see the problem, Naruto. You get to spend plenty of time with us because of it, Ino replied before returning to her work. She's right, Naruto. Besides, from what I've heard, you hate the D-rank missions. Haku teased as she resumed her work just as Ino did. I guess I'm just nervous that something big is coming, Naruto admitted. Because of how often they were home, he could spend way more time with his girls and he appreciated it. He was about to finally give the girls the release they had worked so hard for when somebody knocked on the door. I hate when this happens. Naruto groaned, making the familiar cross seal for the shadow clones and making a single clone. The clone that popped up went out to deal with the person he knew was waiting at the door so the real Naruto could continue his morning fun. When the clone arrived at the door, he opened it up and wasn't surprised to see who was waiting. Good morning, Neko, the clone groaned. Neko was the head of the third Hokage's Anbu, and Naruto knew it was a woman with long purple hair and, from what he could tell, a very nice body underneath her Anbu outfit. She typically only showed up when the third Hokage wanted to speak to Naruto about private matters, and Naruto was convinced that the old man did it to torture him. Lord Hokage wishes to speak with the real you. That he's busy at the moment. The woman responded with a groan. It wasn't the first time that Neko had arrived in the middle of him being with one of his girls, and it was an annoyance to both of them. Naruto, because he couldn't seduce her thanks to his deal with the old man, and Neko because of the fact she had a boyfriend and couldn't enjoy his company because of his illness. The knowledge that she was interrupting Naruto in the middle of annoyed her even more. Same as always, Naruto replied. Well then I'll be off. Neko replied, shutting the door. Once that was over, the clone instantly dispelled, knowing that the original would know what to do next. Scene skip. A very grumpy Naruto arrived at the third Hokage's office, and when he walked in, the leader of the Hidden Leaf Village was in his usual smile. Sorry for interrupting your morning, Naruto, but I wanted to discuss something that you'd be very interested in, the third said with a smirk. And this couldn't wait for a few more hours. Come on now, old man, you know how my mornings are. Naruto groaned. He learned about the old man's ability to spy on him and he wasn't pleased. Not about the ability, but the fact that it meant he could have saved him far sooner if he had been paying attention. Yes, and that's why I wanted to do this now. If it makes you feel better, I want to discuss a private A-rank mission just for you, the third said happily. Naruto was surprised that the old man would want him for a private A-rank mission, but under the circumstances he wasn't about to complain. You have my attention, Naruto replied, his annoyance quickly pushed to the side. The third smiled, since it was a mission that Naruto would enjoy and no doubt him as well. Kakashi told you about the Chunin exams, correct? Well duh, they're the exams that happen twice a year and you nominate genin to become Chunin. Of course there are other ways, but this is the only one that works in times of peace, Naruto scoffed. Kakashi had him read tons of books for his training, and despite his annoyance he did so. One of the books mentioned the exam and how complicated it had been. This time around the exams will take place in the Leaf Village. Not only that, but I have it on good authority that every team from your year will be nominated by their Jonin sensei. The third revealed to a surprised Naruto. The meeting to decide who enters was later that day, but the third had a good feeling on what would happen. Naruto was slightly shocked by the news, but considering his knowledge of the rest of the teams he knew it was a possibility. That's all fine and good, but what does that have to do with me? Naruto said calmly. It has to do with you because that's where your new mission comes in. The third explained calmly. So what's the mission, old man? I was about to have a threesome when Neko barged in. Naruto groaned. Apparently the girls decided who would be joining him for his early morning fun, and it was rare that he got a threesome. The fact that he couldn't enjoy them longer had him frustrated as hell. The third blushed slightly before continuing. Among the villages that will be joining us is a new village known as the Hidden Sound Village. Nothing is known about the village other than the fact that it's in the land of rice paddies and that it popped up only a few years ago. The third explained. He didn't explain this much because he wanted to see if Naruto could figure it out. Naruto smiled, since he knew what the third was after and that it was a mission that would suit him very well. Let me guess. You want me to seduce one of the Sound Village's kunoichi that comes for the exam in order to find out more about the village and why it's popped up all of a sudden? Naruto smiled at the question. This was a risky move since there was no guess on whether or not any kunoichi came, but he was certainly a fan of the idea. The third smiled, since Naruto hit it right on the nose. It bothered the third a little bit, since using Naruto's jutsu was a move straight out Danzo's book and he hated the War Hawk's methods. However, this time it was necessary. Hidden villages weren't something that showed up out of the blue, and for this one to already have ninja ready to become Chunin was a nerve-wracking thought. That's right, and if you like the mission, you'll like the reward I have for you even more. Is that so? Naruto said with a skeptical smile. There were very few things that the third could offer him, and Naruto knew that. Your reward is that I'll reveal your true origins to the village. Once you do that, you will get access to your father's fortune and his old compound. It will also allow you to gain clan status similar to the one that your teammate Sasuke has because of your mother. The third revealed, much to Naruto's shock. Naruto was shocked that he would do all of that, but else something bothered him. Wait a minute, but you can't possibly give that to me as long as I'm a genin. Sasuke only has his because the village can't afford to lose the Uchiha clan. Naruto replied with annoyance. Even if the truth about him was revealed, the fact remained he was still a genin and the civilian council would get in the way. You'd be correct about that, which is why there's another piece to your reward. The third revealed, much to Naruto's shock. If you manage to pass the first 2 rounds of the exams, I'll guarantee you Chunin status. Your father was well liked by the Shinobi Council and they'll easily agree. The civilian council is a minor annoyance, so that isn't an issue. Naruto began to get a savage grin on his face since everything was now in place. Due to his research, he knew that the first part of the exams was a mental test, the second part was an endurance test, and the final exam was a battle. All he needed was details on the first 2, and those were easy to obtain thanks to one of his sources. Thank you very much, Lord Hokage. I'm curious though, can I talk to anybody about this mission? Naruto wondered. His ability to use his resources would be the key to the. I leave that up to you. Think of it as a test of your skills as a Chunin. The third replied with a smile on his face. Sounds like fun. Naruto smirked. He already knew that there was only one person he could tell about this, since his other options wouldn't make it any fun. By the way, there's something else that I'm wondering. Naruto said calmly. The third replied. Even I'm approved for clan status. I'm the only one of the clan. As I said earlier, Sasuke's the exception to the rule, but will it be so simple for me? I'm sure you can figure something out. The third smirked, wondering if Naruto would get the hint. And here I thought I was devious, old man. Naruto replied, realizing what the old man was talking about. Tenten, Amy and Haku could easily be added to his clan, and he had no doubt the girls would agree if he asked. Ino and Hinata were a bit more complicated, and he knew it. Hinata was a possibility since Hiyashi knew about their relationship and could probably make something work, but he didn't want to ruin Hinata's chances of leading the clan. As for Ino, he was still afraid of her father, and naturally revealing their relationship was something he was afraid to do. You are devious, Naruto, but you don't get to be Hokage just by being powerful. Sometimes politics come in handy, the third replied snarkily. See ya later, old man. Naruto smirked since he knew exactly who to talk to first. Scene skip. The Chunin exams, huh? Seems like your life is about to get very interesting, kid. Zabuza said with a devious smirk as he and Naruto exchanged blade strikes. Naruto's routine over the last week had been wake up, have with a kunoichi or kunoichi's TBD, and then go train with Zabuza briefly before meeting up with his team. This morning he had been interrupted by the third, but since he could use shadow clones, Zabuza knew that he'd be a bit late. Yeah, but there's something else, Naruto said calmly. Oh, does that have to do with why you were so late this morning? Zabuza wondered. Their relationship was indeed unusual, but the battle at Wave had shown that he could be trusted. Of course, the fact he taught him about swords didn't hurt either. Yeah, it doesn't. It's how I know the exams are coming. The old man wants me to secretly investigate this new village called the Hidden Sound Village. Apparently it popped up out of nowhere a few years ago, and they're coming to the exams. Naruto said calmly. He was surprised when Zabuza faltered in his attacks. What's wrong, Zabuza? If I didn't know any better, I'd say you knew something about the village, Naruto said nervously. I actually do, kid. I want you to listen to me and listen good. That village is nothing but trouble. I can promise you that getting involved with them is a mistake. Zabuza said sternly. It was the type of stern that he rarely saw from the man, and it meant that this mission was going to be an extreme headache. So why exactly are you so worried about the mission? Naruto said calmly. A year ago I was recruited by the Hidden Sound to act as one of their Jonin instructors. Apparently their leader said that I would be able to join them without any worry from the Mist Village, and that had me on edge. Zabuza said nervously. Naruto wasn't completely shocked that Zabuza had been recruited by the new village considering his strength, but the rest of his statement did bother him. Considering how much trouble it had been to get the Mist to back off Zabuza's back, the idea that somebody could make them go away completely was disturbing at best. Alrighty then. I'll be careful, Naruto said calmly. He would have asked more, but that would have been too easy. Scene skip. Good morning, Naruto, Sakura said in her usual kind expression as he met with his team the next day. The day before, training had been disturbingly light, and then Kakashi left for an important meeting. It was obvious to Naruto that today the whole team would learn about the Chunin exams. Hey, Sasuke said grumpily. Something must have happened to him, but Naruto didn't have time to ask since their teacher arrived on time for once. Morning everyone, Kakashi said with a smile on his face. You're on time for once. So what's going on? Sasuke said nervously. Even with his students learning the truth about his visits, he still made them daily. As a result, Kakashi was usually very late. For him to be early means that something big was happening. Well, I wanted to give you guys something as a reward for being so awesome lately, Kakashi said with a smile as he handed the group some forms. What are these papers for? Sakura said nervously. They're forms for your entry to the Chunin exams in 1 month. All you need to do is sign them and you're ready to go, Kakashi said calmly. Wait a minute, I thought typically new teams aren't selected for the exams, Sakura said in confusion. As a bookworm, she knew a little bit about the exams, and she knew that teams fresh out of the academy rarely if ever made it. Yes, but this crop of rookies is exceptional. Not only are you guys in, but each of your classmates will be involved also. The team of my rival guy will also be involved, so the number of young ninja from the village is amazing, Kakashi replied, causing everyone's eyes to widen in shock. So not only am I in, but Tenten's team, Ino's team, and Hinata's team are in. This should be good, Naruto thought to himself. Sounds like fun. So I take it that's why we've stayed in the village so much, Sasuke said with a smile. Yeah, Lord Hokage suspected that you guys would be selected, so he wanted you guys to take it easy, Kakashi smiled. Well, that sounds like fun. So what now? Naruto smirked. This exam was going to be very interesting, especially with his mission. Well, we get some light training in and then you guys can take care of the forms, Kakashi smirked. So it was time for training. Scene skip. Once training was over, Naruto decided to make a little detour before going home. It was time to see another of his lovers, albeit not one he seduced the way he had Ino, Hinata and Tenten. Here we are. The Forest of Death. Naruto smirked as he made his way into the legendary training ground 44. After he left the orphanage, Naruto struggled to find a meal and shelter from the weather and the various people trying to make his life miserable. He heard a rumor about the Forest of Death and figured why not, and snuck in one day. As he continued to walk, he was forced to quickly dodge a series of kunai that were headed straight for his balls. Your reaction time has improved, Naruto. Though with Kakashi as your teacher I should expect as much, a voice said sarcastically. Naruto smirked and looked up at the trees to find a familiar person waiting for him. Thanks, but would it kill you to aim for something other than my balls, Anko? I kinda need them, as you well know. Naruto smirked as he looked up at the woman standing in the trees. Anko Mitarashi was a special jonin in the Leaf Village, and she was in her upper 20s like his sensei, and was as tall as Hinata's teacher Kurenai, with an amazing body complete with F-cup S that she hid behind a large tan overcoat that went halfway down her legs. No, but it's always funny seeing you squirm, Anko smirked as she appeared in front of him. Naruto loved the way her S jiggled when she jumped, but that was another story for another day. Long time no see, Anko, Naruto smirked as he kissed Anko on the lips. It was a simple kiss, but for both parties it meant everything. After all, Anko discovered him in the forest, and she became like a big sister to Naruto, teaching him all the things that nobody else taught him. Of course that changed when Kakashi took over his training, but Naruto still came by to visit, and they had on a few occasions. Naruto could safely say that Anko was his most skilled lover and the one that brought him the most pleasure. Hinata, Tenten and Ino were higher up, but they lacked Anko's skill. So what brings you to the Forest of Death besides the fact that we haven't ed in months? Anko smirked. The Chunin exams are coming, and I was wondering if you could give me a few hints on what to expect. Naruto smirked. His relationship with Enko was very unique, and one of the things she helped him with was information. Never anything dangerous, but just info that he could use to help seduce people and keep dangerous parties, namely Ino's father, from finding out about his tricks and about his relationship with the other girls. Well, I can't tell you anything, but who knows? Maybe if you're good enough, I might just let something slip. Enko purred. Lead the way. Naruto smiled, knowing where this was going. What made Enko so much fun was that she tended to use roleplay with Naruto, and it allowed Naruto's very hidden sadistic side to go crazy. Of course, Enko was a sadist as well, and both of them enjoyed seeing who would dominate the other. Eventually, they made their way to a hidden section of the Forest of Death where Enko had a side home. It was a place known only to Enko, the third Hokage, and Naruto naturally. It was hidden by a special genjutsu that was undetectable even with the Sharingan, a fairly difficult feat, and it's where the two had their information exchange. Once they arrived at the house, they went straight to Enko's private fun room. It had 2 beds, one for normal plain, and one for more extreme fun. So will it be the usual stakes, Naruto? Enko smirked as she removed her jacket to reveal the black mesh bra and black panty set. I have 10 minutes to make you come 3 times without using clones. I do it. I get the information I want. I don't, and I do whatever you want for the next hour. Naruto replied happily as he stripped down to his boxers. Despite how extreme it may sound, Naruto tended to win the bets most times, and even on the few times he's failed, it involved more. That's right, Enko smirked. Scene skip. As he walked home from his time with Enko, Naruto was both pleased and concerned by his time with the snake mistress. Pleased because once again he was in the presence of his favorite lover, and concerned because all Enko could tell him was that the second part of the exam would be in the Forest of Death. It was rather annoying that Naruto only had that little to go on, but he figured that the rest would take care of itself. When he finally arrived home, he opened the door and lazily went up to his room, hoping to get a break and focus on the upcoming exams. Of course, when he turned on the light to his room, he realized that his night was just getting started. Hello, Naruto, Ino said happily. Much to Naruto's surprise, Ino was wearing a simple purple bra and panty set that showed off her impressive body and relaxing in the center of his bed. She wasn't alone either. Apparently all of us are taking the Chunin exams this time around. Tenten smirked, wearing a dark red bra with a red thong, and she was on the left side of his bed. So we decided to celebrate together. Hinata smirked from the right side of the bed. Hinata was wearing an indigo bra and panty set, and despite how simple it looked, Hinata oozed utility. Seems like I've got quite the night ahead of me. Naruto smirked. And you're not getting any sleep until you all of us senseless. Ino smiled as she got up to walk over to her lover. This was certainly gonna be one for the record books. Scene skip. A few weeks had passed since he learned about the Chunin exams, and for Naruto things were about to get extremely fun since everything was already in place. He was rather fortunate because the Hidden Sound Village had chosen Amis Hotel to stay in, and he found out that they asked for 3 rooms for each of their team members. Fortunately for Naruto, one of the genin was a girl, so it meant that his mission was a go. He was surprised that the leader was staying elsewhere, but that would serve him better in the end. As for his own team, he was certain that Sasuke was ready. Thanks to his Sharingan and his training with Naruto, he was a force to be reckoned with. Sakura was improving, but Naruto knew that if she fought any of the other girls from the Leaf, she'd lose. Of course, his own training was going about as well as possible, and he was sure that he could use Red Fury in battle if needed. The question was, when would he use it? The second exam was an obvious choice, but he didn't want to reveal it before the main battles. The only issue was that without any info on the first exam, he was going in blind. Hidden Sound Village. Dosu Zaku-kin, are you ready for your mission at the Chunin exams? A stern voice said nervously to 3 teenage kids, 2 males and 1 female. While each of the kids had varying appearances, they had one thing in common: a snakeskin scarf around their head and a ninja headband with a single music note. The note was the symbol of the newly created Hidden Sound Village, and these 3 kids were about to learn what their leader wished of them. Yes, sir. Dosu replied happily. Dosu had bandages covering most of his face, leaving only his left eye uncovered. He also wore a large poncho with long sleeves, a straw raincoat protruding from the back of his scarf, and a large amplifier on his right arm for most of his attacks. His back was hunched, which made him look smaller than he actually was. He also had short black hair. We live to serve, Zaku replied happily. Zaku had spiky, black hair and dark eyes. He wore a beige shirt with 2 black stripes and 3 prints of the kanji for death down the front. So what do you wish of us? Kin wondered nervously. Kin had black eyes with very long black hair, almost reaching down to the ground, tied by a violet ribbon right near the end. Along with a pale green vest and snake-patterned pants. I've entered you in the Leaf Village's upcoming Chunin exams as participants, but do not worry about passing. Your mission will be to find and kill a young man, Sasuke Uchiha, the stern voice said once again. Yes, sir, Dosu replied happily. Dosu was the leader of the team and he was more than eager to get to work. Wait a minute. You're sending all of us to kill this one guy, Kin said nervously. She was confident in her abilities, but this seemed extreme. Shut up, Kin. We only exist to serve our leader, and if he wants us all, we go. Zaku said angrily. Zaku was impatient, but he wanted a chance to prove himself. Zaku is right, my dear. In order to get into the exams, you must be a team, and getting you in otherwise would be all but impossible. You should trust in me, Kin. The man replied with a smug tone. Of course, sir. Forgive me for questioning you, Kin said nervously. Something about this seemed off and Kin didn't like it. Being a natural skeptic had come in handy on a few occasions already, and she was definitely getting a few red flags. Then go and do not fail me, the voice ordered. To the 3 genin, failure was not an option, and the man knew it. As you wish, Lord Orochimaru, Dosu said before leaving with the rest of his team. The shadows finally moved, revealing as a man that appeared to be in his mid-40s with pale skin, golden eyes with slit pupils that resembled those of a snake, and long black hair that was in a ponytail. You couldn't see the rest of his body, but he exuded power despite the fact. The time has finally come to get my revenge on the Leaf Village, and Sasuke is only the beginning, Orochimaru said happily. The mission he was sending the genin on was just the beginning.